So I am delighted to be able to follow up my recent drive in the Exige Sport 380 with this, the ultra rare, ultra lovely Evora Sport 410. It's an incredibly rare and special car, and very few people outside the factory have actually driven one. I felt very privileged to get behind the wheel of this gorgeous racing green example, so I'm very grateful to the generous owner who has made this possible. And let me tell you straight away, the carbon work on this car is absolutely stunning. In direct comparison, the carbon quality appears to be even better than it was on the Sport 380. I particularly love that black edge on the tailgate there. Fortunately, the weather this time was much better. The roads were dry, the sun was out, and it was actually a really nice mild day. Now those carbon panels not only contribute to a 70 kilo weight saving, they're also far more efficient, impressively doubling downforce without increasing drag. So one of the key questions for me about this car was whether I would actually be able to notice the 70 kilo weight difference, and indeed the extra 10 horsepower. The power to weight ratio has improved by 25 horsepower per tonne. In theory, an Evora 400 would need another 30 horsepower to match it in a straight line, and I like to think I would be able to notice that. Options on this particular car include sound deadening, aircon, the stereo and the standard exhaust. So this car should come in a little over 1325 kilograms at this spec. So here at last is the lithium ion battery pack, which I've been wanting to see for some time, and it saves something like 10 kilograms on its own. It's standard on a 410, but it costs something like £1,300 if you order it as a lightweight part for your 400. The interior is pretty basic for an Evora and pretty stripped out. You don't have any armrests, you lose the door bins, you've got single piece door mouldings. But covered in Alcantara makes it feel like it was meant to be that way. The real highlight are the seats. Not only are they great to use, they save a massive 9 kilos each compared to the Sparco seats. And I love the way they're bolted in, they're very motorsport. When you open the door, it really looks like this car means business. Right folks, I have here the keys to this car. This is an Evora Sport 410. Right, I said, crikey, very limited rear visibility. There are generous people, there are legends, and there is the owner of this car who has let me come out of the Evora. Wow. It just feels very smooth and plush after the super direct Exige. And quite roomy, as you'd imagine. But that Exige is looking rather nice. We need sport, of course we do. Well. Richard, thank you very, very much. This is a real treat. It feels very keyed in. Yeah, the steering feels very direct actually, and of course one of the best power steering systems in the world. The Evora Sport from 10. This car is becoming a bit of a unicorn. It's almost impossible to get a test drive in one of these. None of the dealers have any. I can tell you immediately it feels more responsive and agile than something like a Nissan GTR. Much more communicative. The ride is pretty stunning compared to my Exige. You can feel every bump, but damped. It feels very plush. Got a bit more headroom here. The seats, which I love, feel bolt upright. These carbon bucket seats. Definitely a bit more room around the legs. It's definitely easier to get into. No surprise there. But I think what I have to try and refocus on is how this compares to the Evora 400. Just in the seats alone, and the way the car is trimmed in Alcantara everywhere, it does feel a more extreme, a more intense car in a good way than the 400. I think it's time for a bit of second gear, I think. The interesting thing will be how it compares in pure accelerative terms to the Sport 380 Exige. These are both cars replacements for my car. So shall we try a little bit? This is 4,000 revs. Christ almighty, the top end. The top end is stunning. The way it goes from 6 to 7 is so sharp. And again into a lovely pop cutout. That last 1,000 revs, that's where you can feel the extra power over the 380 even. Stunning gearbox. I think this gearbox is at least as good as the Exige's, possibly slightly nicer. Let's get me a bit of gearbox. My grinning face, my idiot grin. So the third gear has got a lovely sequence of bends coming up here. Just feel the car just turns in so well, beautifully. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous on the weight transfer, side to side section like that. It's a shame to have to talk, not just shut up. does feel it is a more substantial car than the Exige. That's very clear. Christ, it pulls. It really pulls nicely in that. That's where you can notice the extra power. It's 6 to 7, literally in that last 1,000 revs. It's like slams into the cutout. It wants to rev to 8.5, 8, 9. It just wants to rev. It's so smooth. This 410 engine is silky smooth, more refined than the Exige 380. I'd say the Exige 380 slightly has the edge up to 6, but from 6 to 7. This car is the boss. This car bosses it. Oh, this is just... It's a beautifully set up car. It's firm for an Evora. It definitely feels firmer than a 400. But I like that, it suits the car, it's nice to have a more hardcore Evora, and if you can keep the revs up, it feels really fast. The steering is so special because it's not just the feel, the way the car turns in is electric. It's got a really responsive front end. The steering feels quite highly geared. It's quite quick steering. It's a quick ratio rack. The way the car responds, the front axle is absolutely nailed. So that is I don't think you'll ever tire of the way this car steers. You know, the Nissan GTR is a really interesting comparison because it is the same price as this. Only you get a very well-equipped car. It's obviously even faster in a straight line. But this car, I don't know, the sense of connection and the purity of this car compared to the GTR more than makes up for the performance difference in a straight line, I believe. GTR feels heavy, this doesn't. This feels really light for an Evora, especially. I've just got out of an Exige V6 Cup, but this car doesn't feel heavy, doesn't feel overly lardy. It does goad you on a bit though. It's a car that you just want to hear that top end scream over and over again. I'm pottering around now, I'm just driving very gently. It's fine, it's good for this, it does it well. But there's that feeling of, come on, go, 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 which you do get. The GTR is horrendous for that, because in a way the GTR is quiet until you're... This definitely sounds better than a Nissan GTR. I would take this over a Nissan GTR. You could argue the Japanese car is better value, you can tune that. But I actually believe, because this already has the charge cooler, the tuning potential for this is enormous. Throttle response is pretty similar, it's not better. Perhaps with the charge cooler there's more plumbing to get through, for the air to get through. So it's not, even in, let's try race. Let's try race. It's almost like a two-stroke. You have to get the revs up, but then everything becomes sharp and electric. The throttle response improves a lot as the revs rise. down. This gearbox is fantastic, seriously. They've gone from a gearbox where it was the weak point of the car to it being a strength. I think that point's been made elsewhere, but it's a lovely gearbox. Extra weight. It's and this is getting out of one of the purest, lightest cars on the market. So I'd say after a GTR, this would feel very pure, very light, and a sensory delight. Absolutely delicious. I would love to drive it faster, and faster, and faster. What a gorgeous thing. Richard, I can't thank you enough. Lotus ought to put you on commission. People would pay good money to drive this car right now. It's very rare, and I have to say, it is not disappointed. Some might find the seats a bit bolt upright, and I can see if you want luxury and creature comforts, you're better off with a 400. I can see why someone would choose a 400, but for me, for anybody that does want to do track days and think you've taken their Evora 400 on a track day, I really think this is worth the extra. Things like the carbon panels are absolutely stunning. So this is now a sad face because this drive is over, and what a beautiful car it is. Whew. So I've been thinking for a few days now about how to conclude this. The Sport 410 isn't a Lotus version of the 911 GT3. It has its own distinct character, one that's surprisingly different to the Evora 400 too, given how little has been changed. But the differences really do add up. It looks more than 5mm lower. It responds like an Evora 400 after a double espresso, and the road presence is clean off the charts. I would expect an Evora 400 owner to immediately declare that it's not much faster. It isn't much faster, of course. You'd need a McLaren 650S for that. But the truth is, most fast cars remain unknowable at road legal speeds. We spent the day driving on lumpy British B roads, rarely venturing beyond third gear. Doing the same thing in a McLaren or a Nissan GTR would have felt like a bit of a waste. So many modern fast cars are at their best beyond 100 miles an hour. But when I got home, I did feel I got to know something about the Evora Sport 410, and the experience has stayed with me for days. It's far from perfect, no car is, but there are potential issues about track day noise. The interior will seem a bit basic for some people for the money. The engine could use some more torque to go with its top-end fireworks. It is looking expensive now at 82 grand basic, but also rather unapologetic. If you know who came out with a car which weighed 1325 kilos, had 410 horsepower, hydraulic steering and forged aluminium wishbone suspension, I don't think the press would ever get over themselves. Here it is then, for the few that know the difference. It's an old Lotus marketing line, but it's a perfect fit for this The most Lotus Evora yet.